Hello, everyone. Welcome to Druggies Lives Matter, my pot smoker's Bible show about the war on drugs, why it's wrong, and why we need to um, do something about it, and ultimately what we should do about it, or what we could do about it. Now, my name is Zion. I'm the author of a book called Pot Smoker's Bible, which contains another book called the Book of Zion. The Book of Zion is a book of prophecy that is written entirely in Bible verse, and it is the basis of everything that I do. But I'm not asking you to believe in what I believe. That's not what this program is about. I'm just telling you where I get my information. I'm a priestess. Okay, so I always come from peace, love, and good. I am not affiliated with any known religion. I adhere to all of them. So I speak from a lifetime of study of philosophy, religion, history, you name it, I've probably studied it. But anyway, so when I speak, it's from a background of a scholar. Uh, I don't have any degrees because I'm poor, but you don't need a teacher to learn. So I created this channel, the Pot Smoker's Bible, in order to publish my books as an attempt to fulfill prophecy. And the prophecy states that the figure Zion, whose name I have taken because I qualify, is to stand up as the champion of the drug users, following in the footsteps of Moses. So this is Druggies Lives Matter, this program, and the Pot Smokers Bible channel, is my challenge to the United States government and all governments of this country to justify the war on drugs. Because according to my research, there is no justification for the war on drugs. There cannot ever be justification for the war on drugs. Case in point, today's episode is about gangs. Now, how, I know you're like, gangs. How can you use gangs as an example of why the war on drugs is wrong and should be done away with? Because gangs are the very reason that we need the war on drugs. Because if we don't have these laws against these gangs, they'd run amok and kill everybody. Just like they tell us they would. So the police are protecting us from these terrible gangs that would kill us if they didn't keep them in their little safe pockets of hell called a ghetto. Yeah, that's what they want you to believe. But you go to Google and you ask Google to tell you where gangs started. 1924. Oh my. The prohibition of alcohol. It was the prohibition of alcohol that created the circumstances that led to the formation of the first modern type gang. The prohibition of alcohol failed and was deemed unconstitutional. Within 10 years of that event, the prohibition of marijuana was instituted. It also, for the very same reasons, must be unconstitutional. And it was the prohibition of marijuana in direct response to the black people using the marijuana in the South that led to the prohibition of marijuana, suppressing blacks. Black Lives Matter, Drug Lives Matter. There's where you get your. There's where I get the audacity to call it Drugs Lives Matter. Because if you look at your Black Lives Matter list, most of the people died at the hands of the police because the police assumed or knew that those black men and women were affiliated with drug use. So, it was not only their black skin that lost their lives at those moments. It was also their assumed or actual affiliation with drug use that had played just as big a part. And the creation of the modern gangs is a direct result of the war on drugs. So, if the war on drugs had never been instituted, there would never be a gang to cause violence in the first place. The United States of America put itself in a catch-22. There would never have been a gang if there had never been a prohibition of the drugs. It was the prohibition of the drugs itself that created the unique circumstances that made gangs necessary within society. The war on drugs came first, then the gangs. Okay, the prohibition of alcohol came first, then the gangs. The prohibition of drugs, then the gangs. If there was never a war on drugs, there would never be gang violence. Point blank, period, end of story. So now, we have a problem. Because there is a war on drugs and there is gang violence. So how do we get out of this situation? We end the war on drugs. We end the social, economic conditions that created the drugs in the first place, and then that create the gangs in the first place, and then the gangs go away because they're no longer needed. Cause and effect. The cause is the war on drugs. The effect is gang violence. The one comes first, then the other. The only way to end gang violence is to end the war on drugs. Point blank, period. Now, what is the possibility that the United States of America is going to end the war on drugs without being forced to? Because they've got a really good setup. They create the drugs. Okay, it's like marijuana wasn't created, it was a plant, but it's already illegal. Other drugs are it's not even a drug, but the drugs that came after them are real. Most of them created by, or all of them pretty much created by the pharmacy or upgraded by the pharmacies, the pharmaceuticals. And they're the ones that make all the money on the illegal sales of the drugs that they create and put on the illegal market in the fucking first place. Cause and effect. The corporations create the drugs, the government passes the laws making them illicit, the people go to prison. Cause and effect. Logic. Fact. Now, where is the preconceived necessity for these laws? There are none. I looked. The laws against the drugs were created out of nothing but greed. Corporate greed. That's all. Dow Chemical started the ball rolling, and then the pharmaceuticals took it and ran with it. And now we have a violent nation on the verge of civil war. Because the white supremacists don't want the colored people of all colors, especially the blacks, to have any authority in this nation. That's what Trump's about. So, what are we going to do? Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. One way or another, this is going to happen. We can do it my way and have peace, or we can do it America's way and we can have war. Because Trump and his people are setting the stage for a revolution. At that moment, because they are white supremacists, they're going to go after the blacks, the colors. Those are where the gangs are. Those gangs are going to band together to address the very real threat of the whites. That's what Trump is doing. Now, my way is to take 2 pages from history, Mahatma Gandhi and Moses. Okay? Now, Mahatma Gandhi is the template for the Black Lives Matter protests in the street. But that failed, in that thousands of people died. There was violence in the streets in India. We want to avoid violence at all costs. And we have the means to do so through the gangs. So, we follow the footsteps of Moses. We go on strike. But we go to an encampment. We encamp ourselves in, I'm saying, Panhandle State of Nebraska, where the sand meets land. We have everything we need there to survive. We can go camping. We can put the gangs around the outside perimeter. If we have to, we can separate the gangs so that they don't fight amongst themselves, but I don't think they will, because they'll have a real enemy to defend their loved ones from. And they will be a nation of drug users, protecting themselves against their violent overlords. So, we can go on strike like Mahatma Gandhi, follow the footsteps of Moses, go into an encampment, use the gangs to protect the encampment. We're walking away from the corporations, the politicians, the government that's oppressing us. Peacefully, taking everything with us to let them know that we're serious. We can always take our shit back home. Or we can sequester ourselves in our camp and go the whole Moses route. And just as Moses called on God, we'll call on God. And just as the gray aliens landed for Moses, well, this book says they'll land for the drug users. But that's another story. But that's my theory, because I call myself Zion because that's what Zion does in the Bible, and I want to do that. I've done everything I can up to this point. Now it's up to you guys. So, in order to end gang violence, let the gangs protect their loved ones from their true enemy, the white supremacists in the United States of America that backs them, or the United States of America that suppresses them. Okay? So the Black Lives Matter people and the Drug Lives Matter people are the same people. Let's get together, let's go camping, and let's call on the Gray to watch over us, guide us, protect us, and keep us from all harm. May you be worthy of them. May your thoughts, words, and deeds reflect truth, good, and light, peace, joy, brotherhood, the unicorn way. Find your joy and pursue it. But we'll talk about that another time. If you do drugs, stay happy and high. You have every right and reason to. Believe me, I know. I wrote 2 books about it. My name is Zion. I love you too much to ever say goodbye. So I'm going to say later now.